Well, thanks very much, Acting Deputy Speaker, and I rise to address this bill, the Biodiversity Bill 2025, and I say that because here we are legislating, and in circumstances where there's a government election commitment to legislate in a rolled-up way for the integrity of biodiversity in the state, and the government will tell us this is fulfilling that election commitment, and it should therefore be addressed with some seriousness in terms of the legislative process, well and truly beyond the title and subject and some of the broader, if I might say so without being too terribly pejorative, grandiose sort of aspects of context about what we're debating here. This is a matter of legislating and the quality of provision of legislation. And it's not lost on me as well that the government's seen fit to progress this bill in the week that we'll celebrate on Thursday, World Environment Day. And so we focus on what biodiversity means, what protecting the environment means, and what legislating in this space is likely to do in the interests of not only South Australians but the whole country and the rest of the world. So Korea is going to host World Environment Day on Thursday, and it's got a particular focus on the fight against plastic pollution. And so we know that we're going to hear a lot about the pollution of plastics, particularly on Thursday. I expect that might be the case during the week. And to just place that in some context, have a look at what we've done in this state over recent years. I'm very glad that this government has taken up and continued on the practical work that was done by the former Liberal government to say, all right, we've got a plastics pollution problem. What are we going to do? We're going to identify the causes of the worst of plastic pollution, and we'll introduce bans. And it's exactly what we did. So you see single-use plastics commenced to be banned on a schedule basis, that is, once market and community and all the various necessary systems to avoid major disruption in place, it can be added to as we go along. Practical action that can reduce plastic pollution, and we'll hear more about that during the week. We've got World Environment Day coming up later in the week, and that particular focus. And I say all that because here we are legislating for this overarching addressing of biodiversity. And the Deputy Premier, in introducing the bill and commencing the second reading debate a couple of weeks ago, and others who have contributed on the government side, have talked about the objective of the bill to do a certain amount of restoration and a certain amount of protection, and to, in a more coherent way, I think it's fair to characterise the objective, ensure the strength of biodiversity in our state. Now, I say all this as the member for Hyson and the Adelaide Hills, right smack bang in one of the 15 Commonwealth biodiversity hotspots, and therefore hugely conscious of the fact that this is my local backyard, this is my community, and protecting biodiversity is hugely important. And indeed, with all humility, because I don't claim any particular outstanding achievement, I've co-chaired the Parliamentary Friends of Landcare since I was here, day one, and I was fortunate, very much enjoyed, a period of years as the chair of our Parliament's Standing Committee for Natural Resources, and enjoyed some years on that committee together with the Deputy Premier. And that committee gave members an opportunity to get deeply involved in all kinds of aspects of biodiversity, as well as natural resource challenges and opportunities across the state. And so I'm very conscious of the environmental challenge and opportunity that we see very much in my own backyard in the hills. As is well known, I also, in a day-to-day way, bring the perspective of my family background in farming, both locally and interstate, and it's very dear to me the care and responsibility that those who live and work on the land and derive their living from the land, whether that be in the pastoral country, in productive agricultural areas of the state, and all areas in between, just how much of a central and vital role those who live and work on the land play and need to continue to play in ensuring that we have a thriving biodiversity in the state. So, with all of that in mind, I want to focus my second reading contribution on what I think is yet work that is needing to be done in relation to the treatment of fungi in the bill, because it's, I think, a good illustration among perhaps others that we'll hear in the course of the second reading debate, and I'm sure as the bill is unpacked in committee, of a test of just how effective the bill is in taking a step towards improvement in knowledge and practice and the capacity of individuals who are engaged and are expert to do things to ensure that we see biodiversity improvements. So if we look first to the bill as it's presented to the Parliament, the first point of contention and of concern for those in the community working on fungi and its importance in biodiversity. The bill is concerned primarily with defining first plants, then native plants, and then native plants of a certain kind. And we see a lot of flowing out in the context of the bill around that structure of definition. Plants is defined in Clause 3 to include fungi. Includes also, curiously, algae, as well as flowers, seeds, or parts of plants, perhaps less controversially. Key there, therefore, is in the structure of the bill, is the incorporation of fungi in the definition of plants. I turn then to Clause 8 of the bill, where we see after Clause 7 sets out objects, Clause 8, which sets out the principles that the bill is endeavouring to give effect to. And at paragraph B, one of those principles is stated as follows, that the community has a right to know about and participate in environmental decision making. And I just put decision making sort of somewhat in the middle ground for a moment, but community has the right to know about and to participate in this environmental work. And that's in the context of objectives and principles around working towards an improvement in the state of biodiversity. And what I think is therefore a source of concern, led by those who are most actively engaged in relation to fungi, is that we then have a wrapped up definition in which fungi, which might reasonably be described as being fundamental to the maintenance and resilience of biodiversity, is not separately provided for as it presently stands. The department, as I understand, is conscious of this, and in the course of engaging with stakeholders, has had the opportunity to hear the reasons why it's not appropriate to wrap fungi up in that definition of plants, and why it is necessary to deal with it separately. That's not occurred, and it then leads to this concern that if we are really talking about biodiversity, and we are really talking about the fulfilment of an election commitment, and we are doing it in the context of the recognition of World Environment Day, and we're wanting to be able to say, oh, we know what we're talking about on biodiversity in South Australia, and yet we're not getting to grips with the role of fungi, then one has to sort of say, well, hang on, is this more of a sort of a wrap-up of existing legislation and a zeroing in on a kind of a command and control approach to essentially tree cutting, or is it really getting to grips with what is going on in terms of the constituent parts? I note clause 42 of the bill dealing with regulated acts and activities, and it's the clause that deals, as I said earlier, with that structure of definition, including regulation of the clearance of native plants, including native plants of a relevant kind, and native plants of prescribed species. And I draw attention to clause 42 because clause 42 sub 2 refers us to the general category of carve-outs that we then find in Schedule 2 of the bill. And there's a quite wide range of those carve-outs, but I'll just refer to where fungi gets a mention at Division 9 of Schedule 2 under the heading Miscellaneous. And so we see it in Division 9 of Schedule 2, Clause 25 of that schedule, a reference to fungi and algae, which provides that clearance or taking of fungi other than fungi of a prescribed species is carved out from that regulation at clause 42. that would otherwise regulate its clearance. Now, I say other than of a prescribed species, we know that there are about 12,000 species of fungi that are important, locally recognised, and required in order to first better understand what's going on the biodiversity front, and second to maintain biodiversity. The Department for Environment Water highlights to us at least 10 of those, and yet the way that this bill is structured and what we're told on the face of it is first that fungi is included in plants. Second, there's a general carve-out for dealing with fungi, and the only proviso to that is the fungi that might be prescribed. So it's in those circumstances that it's not surprising that those who are most focused on fungi, and dare I say, among their number of those most focused on what biodiversity in this state looks like, are concerned about this bill progressing in its present form, absent such proper treatment. Now, my chance to celebrate someone who I hold in particular regard in the hills, my neighbour, and I don't regard myself as a collaborator. She's the expert, but Dr. Jasmine Packer, who's well known in fungi circles, and leading the way at the University of Adelaide in this area. And Jasmine is also well known to the member for Waite, and has drawn both of our attention to this matter. I've been in communication, if not collaboration, with Jasmine for the whole period of my time as a member for Hyson. And if I was to look to somebody as an exemplar of what commitment to biodiversity in the hills looks like, I'd be first wanting to seek Jasmine's view, as I'm sure would many others. Jasmine's been at the forefront of the project called Fungi Map, which will be well known to many in this place, and Jasmine will point as well to the leading work of Tom May, including his work at the Royal Botanic Gardens in Victoria, and there's just two. I highlight Jasmine because she's here in Adelaide, and she's also in the hills, but she's part of a group of researchers and volunteers who are leading the way to highlight the central role of fungi in biodiversity in South Australia. And I think it's fair to say that Dr. Packer's point, Dr. May's point, among others, will boil down to a starting point that says, great to talk about biodiversity, and protecting and enhancing biodiversity in the state's a good idea, but you're not going to be getting over the starting line unless and until you are actually identifying the important difference between fungi on the one hand and plants on the other. So there'll be a lot more to say about that, I'm sure, in committee.
Order the